Okay, folks, we're going to get ready with our cannabis edibles seminar. Wonderful world of cannabis cuisine. This room is getting really popular, especially when it's 20 degrees cooler. So you'll see there's going to be a huge group. But edibles is always one of our most popular seminars. And Elise McDonough, of course, she's the author of the official High Times Cannabis Cookbook, which is selling, quadrillions of copies. It's just amazing. So buy it on Amazon for 30 cents right now. No, I'm kidding. No, she's great, and she's been with High Times for 10 years. She's one of our art directors and artistic in the kitchen and on the computer. Everybody, Elise McDonough.
Thanks for joining us today at the Santa Rosa Cannabis Cup. On this panel, we'll be discussing all the issues relating to the edibles industry, how to keep safe, how to create potent treats at home, and how to potentially get into the business yourself if that's what your passion is. So I'd like to introduce our illustrious panel. Can everybody hear me okay? Hear me okay? No? Louder? Louder? This is better?
Let me turn it up.
Okay.
I'll get it.
Hold on 1 second.
So you keep talking.
Is that better? Is it louder now? Yeah. Okay. No?
Yes.
Yes? Can you hear me in the back?
Yes.
On this panel, we have Deborah Chatan at the far end, the co-founder of Edible Complex and maker of Majoon, from a 1,000-year-old ancient recipe for Cananbis cuisine. Let's hear it for Deborah. Seated to her right, we have Big Pete from Big Pete's Treats in Santa Cruz, California. Big Pete creates signature cookies for the medical cannabis market. Let's hear it for Big Pete. Seated in the center, we have Juliana Corella from Auntie Dolores. So let's hear it for Juliana, everybody. She just came out with a new line of edibles for dogs, CBD-only dog treats. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. Very special new product. Right here we've got Kurt from Badfish. The third place winners for edibles at Denver, Colorado Cannabis Cup on 420 this year with their reef jerky. So they're infusing cannabis into a medicated jerky. So we're going to hear a little bit more about how they do that. It's incredibly popular. We've also got Ada Gonzalez, the co-founder, CEO of G Pharma Labs, also a 2-time Cannabis Cup winner for their delicious Meltaways chocolates. So let's hear it for G Pharma Labs. So these professionals and industry leaders today are going to share their collected wisdom about how to create the best edibles out there. So let's start by talking about what people can use edibles for. What kind of ailments can edibles treat? What kind of pharmaceuticals can they replace? So I'd like to start at the far end with Deborah. Grab that mic right there. Pass that over. The question is, what kind of treatment, what kind of ailments do edibles treat? And what kind of pharmaceuticals have you found your customers being able to replace by using the Majoon product?
That's a really tricky question. I'm not sure that I've had a discussion with that many patients that I've met in collectives as to medications that they stop taking. But I think that
Closer.
I think that probably some anti-nausea medications work well along with edibles for some people. I have heard that. Also for pain. I myself use my edible as opposed to taking Tylenol or Advil, which I have arthritis in my hips, and it can get pretty bad, so I prefer to not take those on a regular basis. But I really can't speak specifically to...
So some people are using edibles for arthritis, they're using them for pain. Pete, what do you think? Have you had patients use your edibles to treat specific ailments?
My edibles are used probably for sleeping and anxiety, some back pains, stuff like that.
Can you think of a patient whose life you touched or someone who they shared their story with you?
Yeah, there's this one guy out of San Jose, in his dad's time of dying, our cookies all, gave him relief and helped him out, in his last months. So yeah, that's the story, one of the stories.
We've seen that a lot, is people are able to use cannabis medicine to ease their final transition, and it helps them remain lucid, have their last moments with their loved ones, and not be in a total haze of narcotics. So edibles can be very, very helpful for people who are approaching the end of life. Juliana, what do you think? Through Auntie Dolores, what kind of patients have you met, and what kind of stories have you heard?
Well, besides all the usuals that I think everybody already knows about for cancer, and nausea, and pain, I think there's a whole host of things that are not always talked about, such as PMS. Cannabis is fantastic for PMS and all kinds of pain. You can use a salve on your belly, ladies. It's a great analgesic. I think other uses for cannabis that are really underrated is analgesic pain for athletes. Because I think that, this is a total personal thing that I've noticed is cannabis is really great at helping you focus. And if you're an athlete and you experience pain, obviously, when you're working your hardest. So if you've got an analgesic like cannabis that's running through your system, then I think it can really help for that. So those are just a couple of things that stand out as things that we don't think to use cannabis for that are really advantageous.
Okay, and here you go, Kirk. So what do you guys think? I know that Badfish is also a concentrate company, and dealing with all these extracts, they have very, very potent medicinal powers.
Yeah, getting into meat products was the hurdle in itself. That was, we just barely made it on that one. But as we got into meat, we really wanted to be diligent on why we were getting into it and what we were doing. And something that they hadn't really addressed was, I think everybody can benefit from edibles. They say it's the safest way to consume it because your stomach and the acids and stuff in your stomach will be able to fight off any molds or mildews or pests or anything like that, as opposed to smoking or trying to inhale or something. So everybody can benefit it, but it's definitely getting into, it's just another form to consume the THC in whatever way. As being a recreational smoker for 14 years now or something, I commonly find just new ways that I'd rather feel it, or maybe I smoke a little bit and then I'll eat the edible, or I'll do it through work, or it'll help me do something else, and it'll be a prolonged thing. But just learning the different stages and how that all helps will help anyone in treating any type of medical a wide variety, numerous things, back pain, PMS, people on the way out, any just stress relief, just having just situations that are happening in the world today, just the anti-stress, the taking a breath at the end of the day, and that's helping us all in a common way.
Yeah, absolutely. Using cannabis to relieve stress is something that is a medical benefit that we all sort of take for granted in many ways, I think. So yeah, let's hear about how your G Pharma Labs products help patients.
We actually just had a very interesting story of a patient that had been on 10 milligram Percocet, 12 a day for 20 years, and he was ready to quit. And he started replacing a Percocet with one of our liquid truffles, which are 25 milligrams. And he was able to wean himself to Percocets a day, and then went to none. And I think he's been 3 months doing sober. The other method would have been methadone and those type of things. So I think that was a real eye-opener for us. Easy did it. He says that there was actually, the withdrawals weren't even there for some time. So it was amazing.
And I'm sure it's very rewarding for all of you when you feel that sense of seeing your products help people out there in the world, being able to help people get off those pharmaceuticals that are addictive and dangerous. So let's talk a little bit about how cannabis has been moving away, well not away from, but it's evolving beyond just medical uses, and we're getting into the recreational market in Washington and Colorado, and we're seeing a lot of pushback against edibles in these recreational markets because people who aren't used to them, who haven't used them before, are biting off more than they can chew. We're seeing products that are intended for medical users who have high tolerances, brownies that top 500 milligrams or more, causing trouble with people who aren't used to those effects. So as we move into a new world of recreational cannabis, legalized cannabis, cannabis for everyone, how can we help educate people about edibles? How can we keep them safe? So I'd like to talk about that a little bit, and we'll start with Ada Gonzalez. How have you guys designed your packaging to inform and educate your consumers?
Well, we started, before all these reports started to appear in the news, we actually made our truffles 25 milligram because I thought those 500 and so chocolate bars were out.
We can't hear you.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We start without the packaging. We'll start inside with our chocolates itself. We actually have put some transfers in our truffles. First of all, if they're out at a party somewhere, to make sure that people know they're medicated truffles, we have the liquid gold name on them and the weed leaf. And outside of the packaging, we put our warning signs in the front to make sure that everybody knows that it is a medicated product. We are actually in the process of working to get the message out there more and more on how to eat the edibles in the proper way, how to dose yourself, don't overdose, don't eat too much at one time, don't think that it's not going to hit you when it really will hit you in 60 minutes, 90 minutes. A lot of people eat because they don't feel it yet, and that's a mistake I think that reporter might have made too.
It's a classic blunder.
Yeah, so, yeah, we work very hard on our outside packaging to make sure that everybody knows it's medicated and there's as much on the inside too.
I didn't really touch on your part about also infusing some of these products with extracts in there. So basically, as we get into infusing edibles here, I did some research out in Colorado. I went out there and I looked at all the different ones that they were doing. They called them marijuana-infused product manufacturers. And when we came back, we were under the understanding that we would probably have to eventually, we'd probably eventually have to become an MIP, a marijuana-infused product manufacturer, to be able to continue making extracts. And so we started making jerkies, and we started making other edibles, and we soon found out that it needed to be a little more laboratory here in Santa Cruz, a little more research and development. We're not quite to Colorado's laws quite yet, but we still wanted to take, and I advise everyone getting into edibles, take extra weeks to make sure that quality is key. Don't just rush into it. Don't just throw something on the bag. You guys are going to have lots of repercussions down the road. You know, as we get into this one with the packaging, it definitely needs to say like not for children at the time. Like we even advise you to be over 21, even though in California you can't be 18. There's a certain amount of responsibility as we get into this recreational thing. And as we start to use these oils, and I don't know if I'm going to touch into your other question, we're starting to learn that there's an activated oil and a non-activated oil process of decarboxylation. And as I get into competing with other edible manufacturers, we make sure that our edibles are 100% activated. So me offering you 100 milligrams of activated oil is a much more intense high. You definitely feel that. We made a mistake early on. We backed it with lab tests from SC Labs to show that a lot of our products weren't even activated. So we were feeling it, but how much were we feeling? You know, how hard was the high? How strong was the high? And so now as we get to... Okay.
He's gonna project right into the top of it. Yeah.
Okay, so as we get into this now with activated oil, when I compete against other products that have a 25, a 50, a 400 milligram dosage on it, I don't think 100 milligrams is, I think that's plenty when it's fully activated. I don't think you need to go higher, and I'm not trying to cast judgment on these products here, but that, from our research and development, 100 milligrams activated oil, very intense high, you know what I mean? So as we get into this, it's our responsibility as edible manufacturers to know the science behind this before we get too involved with the profits or the goals of what we're trying to do. And so really taking the time inside the lab has really helped Badfish to take leaps and bounds because we're knowing what we're using, everybody's getting a consistent result, you're getting consistent results of it, and we feel that that's key kind of in all the production.
Okay, Julia, I know you have a lot of very potent high milligram dosage products, so how do you guys make efforts to educate your consumers about how to use those products?
Well, we've been following the standard of 12 to 15 milligrams is considered one dose. That's what pharmaceutical companies use when they're manufacturing Marinol. That's the labeling. It's 12 to 15 milligrams is one dose. California is a really unique cannabis community, and I kind of want to highlight that now because there's a combination of the fact that there's a lack of regulations here, and there's also a huge tolerance spectrum here that you don't see in other states, and that's because California is full of professional, sophisticated stoners and patients. Give yourselves a round of applause for being so awesome at this, but you're a tough market to cater to be quite honest, and we're dealing with that now because we're licensing our product out of state, where in all these other states they've made the awesome choice to actually cap out edibles at 100 milligrams. So that to us is actually good news, and we wish California would do the same. So for the record, I just want to state that because, yeah, we do produce 500 milligram products and 600 milligram products, and we wish there was a way that those products would only get into the hands of the patients that really need them because they do exist. But because of the lack of regulations here, it does put a little bit of, it puts more pressure on us, which is an okay thing. It just means that we have to be even more forthcoming with our labeling and our education and our outreach so that the right people are using the right products. Our products range from 50 milligrams all the way up to 600, and we want to cater to everybody in the community. But actually, we think that regulations capped at 100 milligrams is a good place to be at. So. Other than that, our packaging also states, keep out of reach of pets as well as children, because a lot of pets, you hear a lot of talk from veterinarians now because they're kind of getting tired of dealing with these poor animals that are getting THC toxicity. That's part of why we developed the treatables line. It's CBD rich. So if your dog eats your pretzels accidentally, you can give them treatables to bring them down. And we wish there was more education around animals and cannabis and the different cannabinoids that are good for them. THCA is another one. It's not psychoactive. It's great for inflammation. And that's about it.
I was going to touch upon it. Yeah, even labeling against pets, me facing with beef jerky, they sniff that stuff out of nowhere. Like keeping out of reach of pets, I never even thought to add that to my labeling, but it's something to keep up.
Okay, for us at Big Peach Treats, we've developed this mini treats. Each cookie's 20 milligrams, and I think that's a really good way to start your doses with 20 and work your way up to 120. That's where it is with the 6-pack. They come in 10 packs too, then it's 200 milligrams. It really gives you you can have 1 or 2 cookies one day and 3 or 4 the next. It's good for that. So we really like the mini treats and recommend those instead of eating the big cookie where you might get totally blasted from that. So that's what we did. Anyway.
So when I first started making Majin and designing my label, I knew that I wanted to have specific information on there, and there were a couple of different reasons why. Obviously for safety reasons, being a mother and having gone through all the fears of raising children and things that could go wrong. So I do have, which so many edible makers do, I do have to keep away from children. I have that warning, and also animals. I'm a big animal lover. And I think that's a good information to share. I lab test my product, so it does have the approximate amount of milligrams of THC, and to address the question about strength and how that's going, I do have a 200 milligram product. However, I'm going to be adjusting my dosage because I have, for the dose information, I have 10 20 milligram doses. However, my most recent lab report echoed what's happening in Colorado, so it had a dose is 10 milligrams. So in fact, my package now has 20 doses, if you want to go by the dose. When I work with patients and with collective members, when I'm doing sampling of Majin, I usually begin the conversation by asking if they know what their milligram dosage is. And when they tell me that, well, they've had this particular edible and they could have 3 doses, I don't know what that means. I really don't know what that means. And I think that, so there's definitely education and there's definitely a learning curve there for everybody to discover what their milligram dosage is. And then to couple that with lab testing so that you have a good approximate number of what the strength of that product is so you can divide it up accordingly. I, not too long ago, introduced a single dose, which is 20 milligrams, 2 doses now, so that's changed in that. And I was sort of surprised at how many people really wanted just to purchase for their use, just 20 milligrams. And for some people that's, 4 or 5 doses. And so that was a big eye-opener. I think that, it's true that we're all over the map here with the different doses, but I'm constantly amazed at how many people have a very low dose of 5 or 10 or 15 milligrams at the most. And so I did a lot of experimentation when I was beginning my business, and I tasted a lot of the edibles that were out there and wanted to experience the strength of what was out there. And it's not fun to eat too much of an edible. It's not.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
She was touching on something. Us as edible manufacturers, we can't do much once it leaves our facility, so we're heavily reliant on these bud tenders that are in the club. So typically, we're always talking to them. Them addressing their patients like members in a gym almost, like you know their routine, you know what they're doing. That's really important to me as a manufacturer because then I'm ensuring it's another possibility that it's not getting into the wrong hands. So I just want to say, please train your bud tenders, and we really respect all you guys out there.
Well, yeah, let's touch on that a little bit more because, as Juliana was saying, there's no real regulation of the edibles industry in California. Not for food safety, not to make sure that dosages are as claimed on packaging. There's virtually no official quality control, so it's left up to the industry to police themselves and to regulate themselves. And some people feel that this is the best way to move forward, is let's just make sure that the industry polices itself. In Colorado, we're seeing the state come in and take over and enforce regulations on the industry. So I would like to ask these edibles makers, do you feel that Colorado-style regulations would help or hinder the industry in California? And as we move towards legalization, hopefully as soon as 2016, what sort of regulations would you like to see in California to make everything more uniform, more standardized, and increasingly safe for the public? So I would like to start with Mr. Gonzalez again.
Well, we test our raw material, we test our oils, we decarboxylate the oil, we test the final product, we test the beginning of the batch, middle of the batch, and end of the batch. So we really try to test as much as we can to make sure that what's on the label is what it is. Spend a lot of money on that. Apart from that, we just did a video with weed maps to educate the consumer to actually learn how to eat the edible, and then maybe if the bud tender misses on explaining somebody who's never eaten it ever, they can see the video maybe on YouTube. They can see it on weed maps or find some place. In fact, we're going to put in our truffles in our bars. We're going to put like a little instruction also just to make sure that's the way that we're doing it. We try to be proactive as much as possible. And yeah, that's how we test and how we label.
I may have jumped out to Colorado a little earlier in January there and checked out things. California is a different beast. Colorado is a great petri dish for this experiment. You guys are doing great to show us ways to follow and everything. I don't know if anybody's from here from Colorado, but As we embark here on California, it's simply a supply and demand issue. It literally is, if this goes legal federally, how the heck is there enough supply for the demand that's out there? That's what I saw in Colorado. When I went there in January, it was nothing on the shelf. It was just, and I honestly went out there to see, hey, could I move to Colorado and get into this? And I just, it all turned back to that California will be holding this on their shoulders a lot. And we're getting ready for a big boom here if this goes legal. And are the regulations in Colorado applicable to Cannabis? I don't know. Everything has to be grown indoors. There's like no outdoor growing. I mean, the experience with high power bills and the size of these gardens, I don't know. No disrespect to the Colorado people, but California is, and you touched upon it, the tolerance out here. I see some of my friends eat 5 pieces of this jerky and just be fine, and I'm like, what? Like, how did you do this? And then I'll see, like, I'll give it to my grandma or something as a card, and she can't even handle it. One bit, she can't even handle half. And it's like, how is this happening? So us figuring out where that tolerance level is, I mean, it doesn't discredit that there is people that can handle that, but I think California's got its own can of worms we got to deal with, because I feel we're going to be supplying the rest of the United States more than just California. It'll be, when that happens, it'll be a big boom. So I don't know how to touch upon any further on that, but I just know with Colorado, I don't know if it's all applicable out here. We'll have to figure it out when we come.
Well, unfortunately, California can't supply the rest of the country with cannabis because that would be breaking the laws. So everybody's figuring out the workarounds now, and that's great. So as far as Colorado goes, one thing that I really, really like, and I think would be so great for California if they adopt these similar laws. Colorado opened up their adult use market, but they're keeping their medical. So that's great because patients that shouldn't get their hands on a 500 milligram product won't be able to. They'll be the recreational user and they'll enter the dispensary on one side. There's actually some establishments that have both, and you enter in a different door depending on your status. I really like that because I think that's the only way we're going to be able to address this huge spectrum of tolerance levels and getting the right products into the right patient or adult users' hands. And then to speak a little bit more about California and just the set of little nuances that are different from every other state. California has a huge agriculture side to cannabis growing that no other state has. And when we tried to legalize cannabis in California with Prop 19, there was a lot of backlash from the producers that were all, our outdoor growers that we want to be part of this equation. We don't want to squeeze them out of the equation. And so the laws, when we legalize adult use in California, we have to make sure that the producers that are professionals at it, that have been doing it for 40 years, whether they're outdoor or indoor or what have you, that there should be a merit-based application process, which is actually what all these other states are adopting right now. It's merit-based application processes, or application requirements for processors and growers and retailers, and that's a good thing. There's a lot of experience in California, so we don't want the lawmakers to come in and make it impossible for all the people that are already doing it right and have been for decades. We can't squeeze them out of the equation. So that's going to be a tricky piece, I think, that's really different from every other state. California is the first state to go medical. We might be one of the last to go for recreational. And I don't like that, but that's what it's looking like. So we just got to work with that.
Okay, in California, as far as the edibles, yeah, we do need to set some industry standards. I think us as edible makers can come together and help with that process. I think also, once it does go legal, you're gonna need, like, you know how you have your county workers and stuff, moderate, looking over the water and all that? Well, you're gonna have to have people looking over people's farms, testing their butters, testing all their edibles. So all that stuff will come about sooner or later.
Well, I haven't been to Colorado, so I haven't experienced firsthand. I've been reading as much as I can. I think that the standardization of a dose, like I spoke about, the 10 milligram dose, is probably a very good idea. I think that the 100 milligram, that's interesting, the 100 milligram, I hadn't heard about the 100 milligram limit. But I know that there are people who, everybody sort of falls under the umbrella of patient because it is medical marijuana. There are patients who have a very high dose who 100 milligrams could not touch. And so I think there is a need for stronger products out there for people to choose from. But I think that the testing, the lab testing and the labeling is just really has to happen. And I suppose that's what's happening in Colorado, right? So that has to follow suit here, just for safety's sake. I do have on the back of my label, I have a dosing chart, just as as a tool, as a helpful tool, for people who haven't really tried edibles, or maybe it hasn't worked for them. They haven't figured out their dose, so they can start with a very low dose of 2.5 to 5 milligrams, do 10 to 15, somewhere in the middle, or 25 or more. And for a lot of people, that works very well. So the 100 milligram limit is a good number, I think. I'm just a little concerned about people that, there are some people that have this sort of unbelievable tolerance to edibles where they just don't feel them unless they do a very high dose. And so that's all.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about those types of patients, about the patients who are using edible cannabis to replace pharmaceutical drugs. They're using it for chronic pain. They need 500 milligrams a day or more. Where do they get that kind of dosage if they're not getting it from a sugary edible treat? If for people who are using edibles every single day, you don't want them to have to ingest a lot of saturated fats, a lot of sugar, just to get their medicine. So I'd like to hear these edible makers talk about how they can keep their edibles healthy and how patients at home can make healthier edibles for themselves. So I'd like to start with Deborah on this. Do you have any tips or tricks for patients who are making their own edibles at home? How can they integrate edibles into a healthy lifestyle?
For making edibles at home, I suppose, each person is going to decide what types of foods they like to possibly infuse with cannabis and go from there. With Majun, this is a very, very old confection. It goes back hundreds of generations, literally, with the Moroccan Berbers. And traditionally, they would use wheat, they would grind wheat, and they would use that as a sort of a base for making the majid. So when I made the majid, I wanted to be very traditional. I'm sort of a traditionalist when it comes to food and cooking, and I like to keep things that way as much as possible. But I did know that, and this is from contact that I had with people in dispensaries and just family and friends, I did know that there were people that were lactose intolerant, that were wheat intolerant, people with celiac or gluten intolerant. And sometimes it's a health issue, sometimes it's just a lifestyle choice. So I removed the wheat and I replaced it with a grain that's a non-gluten grain. That was a really easy thing to do. It didn't, I don't think, affect the flavor of the majun or the texture of the majun, so that was good. So there are choices that people can make when if they're making their own edibles or if they're out purchasing edibles and they want something that they can eat regularly. Everybody's going to make that choice. Some people want to have sugar every day. They want to have, sweet things. They want to have something sublingual, or they want to have a cookie. It's really a personal choice, but it's good to offer those choices. I don't see at this time probably the ratio of really healthy edibles in the sense that without sugar and some of the ingredients that if you have a compromised immune system you want to avoid. There aren't really a lot out there, but I see more and more, so it's happening. And yeah, I think it's good to have choices.
At Big Peach Treats, we make cookies, so it's all made out of butter. And yeah, it's good stuff.
So yeah, we make products with butter as well. We try to keep our butter products less fattening, and the brownies are rather small. And we use a lot of coconut oil. Coconut oil is great with cannabis. It's such a high fat content that it does really well, the cannabinoids. And then as far as our product line goes, we're trying to just develop more low glycemic products using coconut sugar, which doesn't make your blood sugar levels spike up, so that's great for diabetics. We're starting to develop Paleolithic. If anybody here is paleo, raise your hands. Nobody? Come on. Okay, yeah, no, just so we can, give patients with that diet a choice as well. Like you said, it's all about choices, and there's so many different dietary restrictions out there as well. You've got this wide range of patients. There's a lot of different diets, vegan, gluten-free. So we have a product for everybody, basically.
Man, I hope we make it to where we still have choices. Literally, I'm reading Oregon just enforced a ban against all candy-like edibles. San Jose, Santa Clara, it sounds like followed on the path. I'm not trying to mess anybody up with any sudden alerts here, but it's looking like it's going all towards capsules and syrups. We want to have the ability to make you guys edibles. We want to be able to have choices. We want to have different things. But unless a bigger regulation sets in, or we all have a co-op way where we can have standards amongst ourselves or something, we all may get cornered to it just being a medicine and just having capsules and just having tablets and stuff. This may not always be around, so I'm not trying to say that that's going to happen, but we still need to all keep an open mind that the choices are there and they're good. And when I don't know if everybody else is with me, I hang out with a lot of concentrate smokers, so this edible thing, we all used to eat edibles back in the day, and it used to send us on a 10-hour roller coaster that we didn't know when we were getting off, And now that we're concentrate smokers, it'll be an hour, and I'm back from 100 milligram jerky, and it's it didn't hurt me that bad, So this whole thing, as we get into these larger amounts, it's starting to show that I wouldn't have to do 3 or 4 dabs. I could do a dab, and then I could do an edible, and I could do it for 3 or 4 hours. It's good. So I like having that choice. I don't like taking capsules. I don't like taking pills. I got into this because I didn't like doing it. I had herniated disc in my back from football, and I didn't want the Vicodins. I didn't want all that stuff. This helped me get through physical therapy. It's helped me get through everything, and I hope it lives on. I hope we all don't jump on the bandwagon to just have it all go to a very, very specific capsules or Marinol or whatever.
Really quick, I know we want to take cannabis off of Schedule 1, but if it goes to Schedule 2, welcome pharmaceuticals. So we don't want it Schedule 2. We want to deschedule cannabis, not reschedule, deschedule. Otherwise, pharmaceuticals are going to make it go to pill, and that's all you're going to get, and it's just going to be right back to square one, and you know how that goes.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if this could go back. This is part-time. New York actually just brought in a whole different realm. They only want extract form. They don't want flowers. So it's going state by state. In the future, what I see is a dispensary is going to have all your choices like a supermarket does. You're going to go in there and you're going to take if you're on a diet, you're going to be able to find the product for you, so on and so on. And for right now, we just make things that make you
Fat but happy, fat but happy. So let's shift gears a little bit. I'd like to talk a little bit about the science of edibles, and some of the people have touched on activating your oil, and how do you make sure that you're getting all of the THC out of your cannabis and into your edible. So I'd like to ask these experts, how do you make sure that your products are fully activated as much as you can explain without giving away any secrets? But what is decarboxylation? How does it work? And how do you make sure that you're getting the most out of your products? And what can people do at home to make sure that they're making their edibles in the most cost-effective and efficient way possible? And I'll start right here with G Pharma Labs, Adam.
Yeah, well, I first heard of decarboxylation. I didn't know it sounded like some sort of-
What?
But this oil in my vape pen, if I put it in my edible, it will not work. It doesn't get you medicated. It's a simple process. They gave us a simple formula and it works. I don't know if it's any trade secret really like that. It's just activating the oil with heat and a certain amount of time at a certain amount of temperature, and that activates it. Yeah, that's it.
I'm not trying to take a stance like I know any more than these people. I work really tight with Ian Rice over there at SC Labs to really try and figure out more of this. And back in February when we were doing a testing, we were continuously eating the jerky and getting like this spicy taste on the back of our throat. Like it wasn't a spice, it was something else. We couldn't figure it out, and that's what brought in the whole equation of should we be decarboxylating all the oil? And the one thing that needs to be touched on is THCA, the first step before THC, has a lot of beneficial properties. So yeah, the THC will get you high, but the THCA will really help a lot of ailments, anti-inflammatories, other things inside your body. And so right now we're chasing that everybody wants to get high on it, but there is going to be a whole other realm of people that are just benefiting from non-decarboxylated oil, that are getting benefits from that as well. So right now, the science behind it is literally, do you want activated oil or non-activated oil? Honestly, we should be labeling that on our thing. Like there's 50-50. I mean, that could be something that we all should be doing together. But there's so many different benefits from all these different cannabinoids that are in this product that I don't know which one to give you guys. You honestly, you guys want to get high, that's what I'll give you. But there's so many other realms now that we're reaching into on the science behind this, that these edibles can have a wide variety of things that don't even get you high. And I think that's what a lot of pharmaceutical companies are chasing. But we're here still on this level that decarboxylation is definitely key, but don't get me wrong, as edible manufacturers, you guys could do it even without decarboxylating the oil, but it's not gonna get you high. Removing that acid, you gotta do it, like you said, for a certain amount of time, at a certain heat, and that gets tricky. You guys are gonna figure that one on your own. But yes, as a manufacturer of concentrates, I am definitely, I feel like, right more up on that front end of that I have to be so vigorous with the trim that comes in, that we process, that we work with dispensaries on, no molds, no pests, no anything. So then when it gets to an oil form, I'm not trying to say I have a one-up on these guys, but I feel like for one drop of oil I could put in there, it's taking other people a lot of different ways on how to figure out how to get it, and I can really mask the taste by not having any other matter that's in there. So I think it is starting to get to that, and so many people are knocking on my door. How can we make an oil? How can we make an oil? And I think it's going to be a lot like if we related it to wheat. There'd be a grade A oil, a grade B oil, a grade C oil, and I think that's going to be up to us as concentrate manufacturers, not edible manufacturers, to provide you guys with a product that you can use at home, whether it just be a butter or another bonding agent or coconut oil or something, but that if you guys ever did want to get into that I feel we probably could produce something that would allow that. But for now, that gets you all into a whole other realm of what we're trying to regulate, to not have E. coli in it, not have pesticides, trace elements. I mean, it's not just throw some weed in the butter and then put it in an edible. This is a scientific method that we're all using.
And luckily we have great labs in California, so if you're experimenting at home for, if you wanted to do a big batch of, say, coconut oil extract and you're wondering if it's fully decarbed, I suggest taking it to the lab, because there's no other way to find that out. And from there you can adjust your process. Maybe I didn't cook it long enough, maybe I didn't cook it at high enough a temperature, and you can get feedback from the lab that you're working with. But to touch on what this gentleman said about THCA, huge benefits with inflammatory pain. And CBD has been all the rage, as it should. Now THCA needs to kind of have that recognition because of the long list of health benefits and because it's not psychoactive. So I think any research into the non-psychoactive cannabinoids that we can give pets and children is great. And so we actually want to incorporate THCA into our pet treats now and then develop human edibles that are CBD rich as well as THCA rich. And then there's THCV, which is phenomenal for Parkinson's and epilepsy. Just more research on all these other cannabinoids would be awesome. But as far as decarbing, you gotta rely on the lab. I mean, unless you've got the equipment at home. I don't know anybody who has that equipment at home though.
Okay, to make these cookies and you want to make a butter, you could find a butter recipe online. Just put some of the herb in a crock pot with the desired amount of butter. Let it cook for 8 hours. Cook it for an hour and a half real high. Then another 8 hours. Slow cook it for 8 hours on low. And just make some brownies or some cookies. And no need to get it tested out. Just test it out at home.
No, we love you, Big Pete.
So my product is a raw product. It's in the sense that the only cooked ingredient is I make a ghee, where I clarify butter. So I'm cooking it for very slowly for a long period of time. Then I'm removing all of the milk solids, and I'm left with the ghee. And but other than that, there's no heat that's applied to my product. So it's really important for me that when I get my source material, which is an oil that I use, that I see a full lab report, so I know that the THCA has been, completely decarboxylated, and the Delta 9 is, is looking good. And as far as the CBD, I totally am on board with how important CBD can be for many people. Probably for all of us, it would just be a great thing to have in your diet, actually. But I, as an edible vendor, as an edible manufacturer, as somebody trying to get my edible out there, when I first introduced Marjoon, it was 90 milligrams of THC, and it wasn't enough. And I was very sort of stubborn. I was kind of like where you're heard. I'm like, this has got to be enough. It's like, this has got to be enough. It's like that's a lot of THC, but it was not. So I took my recipe back and reformulated and came back with 200 milligrams, and that was enough. It was sort of the sweet spot. But I do get a lab report, so I agree with what you said about test if you're making coconut oil or you're making a big batch of butter or a big batch of anything. It might be worth it to test your source material, your butter, your oil, whatever you're infusing into that to give it to make it psychoactive or what you want it to be. Because you can get something that is not decarboxylated and then it's going to not be as psychoactive. And that's the only way you can tell.
Yeah, I mean, the basics of decarboxylation is that you are toasting your cannabis in order to convert the non-psychoactive acidic THCA. You want to convert that into THC. So you do that as a function of time and temperature. So you don't want to exceed 300 degrees because then your THC begins to evaporate away and it converts into CBN, which it will make you very, very sleepy. So you can get really good results by toasting your cannabis in an oven at 250 degrees for about half an hour to an hour, and then just simmer it in whatever recipe you're making, and it should be fully activated at that point. And if you'd like to really hone in your recipe, then yeah, by lab testing, you'll be able to know exactly what's going on in there. But just for making edibles at home, you just want to keep it low and slow on that crock pot, just like Pete said, let it go for 8 hours on low, and then you can be rest assured that all of your THC should be fully activated for the most potent edibles. And speaking of potent edibles, I'd like to talk about our last topic, which is what do you say, how do you help someone who has eaten too much? Your friend who made that classic mistake of eating one brownie and then saying, I don't feel it, and it's been a half an hour, so then they ate another one, so then in 2 hours, they are riding the crazy train. So how can you help them? What do you recommend to mitigate a difficult edibles experience? And we'll start in the middle this time. We'll start with Juliana.
So one of the things that I love about CBD is it's a bit of an antidote to THC toxicity. So if you have a friend or a family member or yourself, you're just way too high, first thing you should try to do is get your hands on some Harlequin or some AC/DC or a strain that's rich in CBD and smoke it ASAP. Vape it ASAP, or the edible would take a little bit longer. Like I said, the dog treats have CBD in them. One of the things that we put on the label is give this to your dog if your dog consumes edibles, or if you accidentally got them high because you were doing doggy dabs or something crazy like that.
Don't do doggy dabs.
Don't do doggy dabs. Dogs don't really want to get high, by the way. We've talked to vets about this, and I know there are health benefits, obviously, to THC, but dogs are way more sensitive to THC than humans are. So like a 20 milligram dose of THC for a dog would probably be like a 40 milligram dose. So yeah, that's not good. CBD is the best thing for counteracting the effects of THC, so that would be my suggestion.
Oh man. Okay. So us at Badfish, we really chase the high. We want you guys to really feel it. I mean, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. That's how we angle the product, and that's how we really structure the ingredients in there. I mean, it's a medical thing, and I feel it releases a lot of stress on the end of the day, but honestly, we could intensify this to be even more. And I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but it brings the topic that this is one substance here, but a perfect storm of antihistamines or other medications that you're on or something could directly cause a chain reaction to happen inside of you. So it's not just like, oh, I take my normal meds, oh, now I'm gonna just eat this jerky. Believe me, we've had some side effects. We're not just perfect here. We've heard complaints sometimes of people going, whoa, this is way different than just my old joint in the 60s, man. This is not no jerky. So as we get into that, start with a little, man. Don't, like if you're gonna eat an edible, start a little bit. Edible game is a whole different, and the other thing is the tolerance seems to double. Like literally I'll eat 20 milligrams, the next time I'll eat 20 milligrams, I don't even feel anything. I gotta eat 40 milligrams. Then after that I gotta eat 80 milligrams. And then how high and how fast does that go? Like how quickly is that gonna happen? So all of that is coming into play, but yes, the CBD is a counter agent, that's awesome, you know what I mean? But it's really up to you, up to ourselves, to moderate how much we're eating, because we're giving you the products here. Now be careful, you know what I mean? This is not just, and we've had some discussions about this too, like when everybody says, when alcohol became legal, you don't just go drink the whole bottle of tequila and figure it out. I mean, that's where we're at into it, right? Like there is a crowd that hasn't smoked in a long time, that hasn't eaten edibles in a long time, and they just think they can jump up and try my jerky. It's like, pump the brakes, man, hold on. So as we get into this, two crowds just literally slamming into each other, we haven't taken a step back to regulate, to come back too hard. It's a product, you know what you get. You know what I mean? Yeah, we'll make it 10 milligram, it might not move off the shelf very quick, but the 100 milligram is gonna stay, you know what I mean? And it's really up to you to as you get into edibles, you'll learn that it's a fun, pleasurable experience once you get there, but we all have to develop a tolerance. And now as it's becoming more and more legal and more accessible, still take baby steps. Still have fun when you're there after 2 or 3 years, but in your first year trying edibles, it's baby steps. And then look to CBD, like she was saying. If you got a little too overboard, yeah, get back to ground level, you know what I mean? But as we get into these other ones, educate yourself once again what the different ones are, and I think that'll help you get more of what you're looking for out of the medication that you're seeking.
I think you made a great point about alcohol. The first time we drank alcohol, how did we know how much we could take? And it's the same thing with the edibles. After the first time, you'll learn your doses a little better. Have a friend with you. You overeat. Drink water. I think maybe eat prior to eating the edible. And drink a lot of water. Pass out. That's really what I see people doing. Yeah.
That is important advice. If you ever do find that you've eaten too much of an edible, like Big Pete said, if you cooked up a potent batch of butter and you're experimenting on yourself and you just ate too much and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out a little bit here, just remember that you're going to sleep it off. You might sleep for 12 hours, but when you wake up, you will be okay. That's always important to remember. It's going to be okay. So in closing, I'd like to say that I will be at the High Times booth following the seminar. If anybody would like to pick up a cannabis cookbook, I would be happy to autograph it for you. You can find me on Twitter, Elise McD420. And you can find new recipes from me every week. I present a column on hightimes.com called Psychedelicatessen that features a new recipe from a different edibles maker every single week. And I'd like our esteemed panel here to just tell you guys where you can find them at the medication area or online. And then, thank you everybody for coming, and we'll see you tomorrow. So please, everybody, share your websites and or booth numbers so people can come and find you.
You can find us at www.gpharma.labs.com, and I appreciate everybody here today.
Yes, you can contact us directly, badfishextracts.com. There's a contact section, just go ahead and send it to us. We're pretty prompt to respond, and we're definitely down to help anybody in the medical community that's looking to get into this stuff, so go ahead and send it all to us. You can also find us at booth 81A down there in the back corner, and come by and feel free to talk to us more.
We can be reached at auntiedolores.com for our human treats and treatables.com for the doggy treats. We're at booth 57. I believe we're sharing our booth with Mr. Nice, C-Bank, and CBD Crew. If you're growers and you want to grow some CBD, come by. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, you can find us at bigpetestreets.com and on Instagram at bigpetestreets.
We're at majoun.com, MAHJOUN, and on Instagram and Twitter at majoun420, and on Facebook, Majoun.
All right, thank you everybody. Let's hear it for our edibles